Hello, everyone. This is Tamika Ellsworth with Faith in Homebuying, and super special guest today. I have the Grahams. Grahams, say hello to the people.
Hello. What's up,
Thanks
world?
for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my pleasure, and I think your story is super special and very, very necessary in this particular time, especially knowing that the path to home ownership wasn't the easiest. It had a lot of ups and downs, but we got through it. So we'll be hearing a little bit from you in a little bit, but usually how I start Faith in Home Buying is a little inspiration. Okay, I was able to talk to a friend the other day, and we were just talking about the pressure of life, things that have just happened, and it was a great conversation because we talked about if pressure in life and the things that we're experiencing right now hadn't really happened, would it have produced the creativity? Would it have produced the resolve? Would it have produced kind of knowing what I have inside of me to hopefully shine out and spread out to everyone else, right? And sometimes that's what it is. It takes adversity sometimes in order to see what's really in you and really what's in the world, what's in the people around us. And so that's what I'm super excited about, even dealing with your story. When the pressure came on, did you hang in there or did you keel under pressure? But in talking about that, I like thinking about, in Isaiah 64:8, it talked about, we are like clay, you are the potter, and this is God kind of dealing with us. Each one of us is the creative, artistic work of your hands, right? And so how beautiful it is when I think about the creative, artistic work, even in this time, it makes me think of diamonds. Okay, now don't get me wrong, diamonds are used probably a lot on things. However, in this situation, I was studying about the diamond, and there's like things called facets that are on diamonds, right? So, well, number one, diamonds are created from a whole bunch of heat and pressure, and a lot of the ground. So they're dug deep in the ground, probably hidden for billions of years a lot of times. And then all of a sudden it comes up to cool down, and when it cools down, it's carbon, and when it cools down, it forms these diamonds. And the diamonds are, they're not really cut like how you would see them in a ring, right? It takes a lot of preparation to get them to that point. But how amazing it is, there's these different parts to the diamond called facets. And facets, they're on a diamond surface, but rather than like it being a smooth polish, it allows the diamond to reflect the light the best. So all these cuts and stuff on this round, smooth stone. And so as light enters the diamond through like these planes, it refracts or bends, right? And then the rays, they travel to the crystal at a new angle, and then it reflects back out. And that's how you get like the display of light and color. And so I thought it was kind of cool that like each facet that a stone carver makes, it's intentional. Okay, so diamond cutters, they consider like the uniqueness of the stone, because no stone's alike, right? When they mold it and they shape it, and so the uniqueness of the cuts is supposed to be there in order to refract the light differently from each person. And then it's carefully, polished out, but each facet, it maximizes the crystal's brilliance. And then also its uniqueness as well, because it's intentionally molded. And, in thinking about that, I'm thinking that, God has specific strengths that reflect his character, right? And he molds that into us when we're going through, times of just different times, right? But he carefully and he deliberately chooses strengths for each person that will reveal part of who he is. It's on purpose, right? It's on purpose that we have different cuts. And it was on purpose that we're unique and we're molded differently, so that, for instance, in times like this, we can shine, just as the church, just as a Christian, right? So in what's interesting too is that, you share strengths that another person doesn't have, but yet, you're cut at different angles. However, you still all fit together and you still all work together, right? And so what one person shines in is a little bit different, but you still can work together in order to make it something of brilliance. And, each angle too is cut differently, and it's carefully cut. And it also takes into account how the light is going to come in when it enters the stone. I mean, it's marvelous when you really think about the whole totality of how they actually produce diamonds. And it just makes me think that, you know, God molds each of us with facets that are unique to our bend. Basically, our strengths reflect him in a way that's different from everyone else. And so hopefully that's an encouragement today, right? An encouragement today that what we're going through in life, and, you know, life being differently, maybe not being able to do the things that we want to do or that we can do, but how amazing it is that I've seen people go through, you know, situations where, you know, maybe their job loss, but I've seen the most amazing things happen with individuals, and creativity from nowhere comes in times that they didn't even think was possible, right? Creativity comes. I've seen people, the entrepreneur and people come out, you know, which is interesting as well, right? Making resources happen where there never was any resources, right? When things happen where you have to actually work from home, things actually happen too. Actually, you being able to, well, I know we're experiencing this right now, the homeschool mom coming out, didn't, not thinking that that was even possible, but certain things coming out that you didn't think that under pressure that you'd be able to produce, right? Being able to actually be a better wife, a better husband, you know, especially having patience, knowing that you're both working from home. Knowing that you're both working from home and being able to, you know, truly love on the person, even in the midst of strife, even in the midst of stress, right? And knowing what comes out of us in times of stress. But hopefully, the world wise, right? Hopefully the world looking at hopefully the world looking at the light that reflects from us through, you know, Christ, the God reflection. The hope is what they see is a reflection of not just the, you know, the stress that we're going through, but hopefully it's a reflection of really God producing something beautiful inside all of us banding together, helping out a neighbor, you know, going and helping out, you know, the elderly, or helping out a food bank, going and donating money, however you can donate, however you can do that, you're doing, helping out your local community, you know, going in and you know, checking in, you know, for instance, myself, checking in on past clients. I was thinking, oh my goodness, you know, I just got some people into homes. How are they doing? And I'm so proud to say, like, so far, I only got through half my list of my past clients, but I can say that I'm so thankful that over half of them are doing well. And it's not affected them in a way that, you know, they have job loss. A lot of them are working in jobs. They're being able to, you know, still put food on the table, still being able to make their mortgage payments. That's a blessing in and of itself. And, you know, just being able for myself to shine that light on them. And look, I don't want anything from you at all. Not even asking if you want to refi, not even asking if you want to purchase. I'm not asking that. But what I am asking is, how are you, and how can I be a help? How can I be a resource, right? And so in our next episode, or in the next segment, we're going to talk more about your story. And we're going to talk about how it is that you overcame the obstacles. Number one, in just even coming down to the Silicon Valley, because I know that was a God story in and of itself. But in that process, finally establishing yourself, even in the midst of chaos that was going on in the world at the time, and still pressing forward and pushing forward, and now being a very integral part of San Francisco, and specifically Vive Church, the San Francisco campus. So stay tuned, everyone. We have the Grams coming up next.
Right on time.
All right. So those of you that do know on here that's listening to live, you know, I'm recording for my Saturday show. So just know we're going to have some breaks in between, but then we're going to come back. So I'm just doing that for the show. So just bear with us. All right. So now I'm looking for my next segment and the amount of time. Just go ahead and chat that one on Marcos for me. Should be 10 minutes and something probably. All right. Hi, everyone that has joined in. I appreciate you joining in. If you have any questions, remember, this is a good question time, especially those that might be going into the process of buying, selling, or, maybe a little bit stunted, or just kind of having some thoughts on family members to share this information with, or, just people around you that you love and you care for. Please do, and please share the video as well. But the Graham's going to have a great story. They're just great people in general. So we're going to start our next segment. Marcos, we're going to start it now. All right, Rob and Teri.
Hello.
So I have to say Pastor Rob and Pastor Teri. I told you I have to. But thank you very much for joining during this time. And just a little bit of a setup. Pastor Rob and Pastor Teri, they are the campus pastors to our San Francisco campus of Vive Church. And known them for a while. They're great friends of mine too. But just all around, just great individuals, great people. And I've seen their transition from, one facet of where they thought that, hey, this is where God has us, to a whole completely other facet. And they're going to talk about that. So Pastor Rob and Teri, thank you very much for being here. And talk a little bit about your miracle story, even on getting here to Silicon Valley.
I know that's like,
I feel like to call it an accident.
It is it's very much like an accident. I think, just kind of going back, I'm originally from Atlanta. Teri's from Chicago, went to high school and college in Atlanta. So
I'm from Chicago though.
Yeah. We'll say Atlanta. So for the sake of the story, from Atlanta, both from Atlanta. And, after college, I moved out to the West Coast, specifically like the Pacific Northwest in Washington. And we were dating long distance. And then when we got married, moved to Austin. And pretty much like the day before our wedding, Apple reaches out to me and says, hey, we want to interview you. And then a week later, I got a job offer. And then here we are, just moved to Texas. Now we're moving to California. And if anyone will tell you, they'll tell you that most of the time people don't move from Texas to California. You move from California to Texas. And so here we are in the Silicon Valley and starting a new life and looking for a church, found a church at Vive. And I guess California started to become more and more like home. Mm-hmm. And I think, when it comes to, when you think around a place becoming a home, you want your own physical like home. Mm-hmm. And I think early on we had thoughts around getting a home.
Yeah. Growing up in the South, everybody has a home.
It's not just
have a really specific idea.
It's huge.
Of what a home is. Like, growing up, I was like, I'm going to live in a house like my parents. Mm-hmm. Even their starter home was a 5-bedroom, 3,000 square feet on a full basement on 2 acres of land, like for, $200,000.
Right.
Like, and I was like, yeah, we're going to have
down payment.
And then we got here and we realized, oh, okay, that's going to look a lot different.
Yeah.
So that was shocking.
Yeah. And we started our I guess, thinking around getting a home. I guess we've been in the Bay for 5 years now. So maybe like year 2 or 3, mm-hmm. started thinking about it. And that's when we kind of met you, Tamika, and started talking around like, hey, we're thinking about getting a home, but we want to just get prepared. Because we still had student loans, still had things that we wanted to get in order.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah, we still had student loans. Both of us still had student loans. So we had student loans. And so we wanted to kind of create a plan on how do we actually step into a home and what does that look like. And mm-hmm. so, it really took a year of just like getting our finances in order. Mm-hmm. And then when, student loans were paid off and we were in a position where, okay, now we can actually start to get ready for this. I think that's when we got serious about it. Mm-hmm. But the question, and really the biggest question was where? Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Living in San Jose. And I would say, man, we live in San Francisco now, but San Jose is like it felt very like suburban town, at least where we lived in San Jose.
Right.
And we were actually transitioning to live in San Francisco to start leading our church in San Francisco, our San Francisco location of Vive Church. And so here we are, and it's like, we never thought about getting a house in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. Like the thought of living in San Francisco sounded cool, but actually living in San Francisco is a different story.
It never sounded cool.
Exactly. But even before that, I remember you came to my first faith and home buying course.
Yeah.
And you were one of the first people in there. It was a nice group of people. So, but that just shows that from the point of just saying, we're going to take a step out and actually consider doing this, God was already working.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we're in San Francisco, and honestly, like, I dream a lot, but I don't actually act on it. And Teri dreams a lot more than me. And
I have to push him to act.
Yeah.
And it's funny though, because us being in a position to buy a home was all of that preparation, right? Getting our finances in order and preparing from that front. But it wasn't until we were kind of put in a corner, I would say, that we had to make a choice. Like, are we going to look for a home to buy when we've been like writing it on our vision card and we've been praying over this and we've been asking God for this, but we've not actually, besides, you know, becoming debt free, we've got a savings account that looks pretty healthy. We've not taken any real steps toward being homeowners.
Right.
And it was like March of 2018 when our landlord was like, we reached out to him because we wanted to renew our lease and continue renting in that property for another year. He was like, yeah, actually, I'm putting it on the market, I'm selling it, so no, you can't renew. And we're like, oh, okay, that's cute. Okay, well,
I don't know if I use the word cute, but she did.
The pressure's on.
Like, well, okay, what are we gonna do then? And it was like, well, do we want to keep, you know, paying all this money and into something that will never be ours, or do we just want to see what's out there? And we asked that landlord at the time, how much are you going to sell it for? And he said 1.1, and I was like, whew. Okay. And then I was like, well, Rob, let's just for the fun of it, let's see if we can even get that. Let's see what the bank will give us to be homeowners. And then it came back and we could have bought that property. And then I was like, oh, well, now that I know that we have some buying power, let's go see what's out in the world. And we did. And I just feel like so much of it feels like an accident, but looking back, it was so God ordained at every step. And everything kind of happened at the right time. And
but that goes to show what you had to, because it was the truth. We had met previously before, but it wasn't until the pressure was on where, again, a situation had to happen in order to catapult you to actually start to make a decision. And that's just like God, right? Sometimes we need certain things. And I think even the situation that we're going through now, sometimes we need certain events to happen in our life. Not to say that God causes them, but he will utilize them in order to produce something else for the next step that he needs us to do. And this very thing was that. The next step, he said, okay, now I need to plant you now. You've been sent out to where you needed to go in San Francisco, but now I need to plant you. And hence, you know, being planted, that meant, okay, where would be a nice artistic place for us to plant ourselves at? And hence we stumbled upon, not necessarily stumbled, that was probably one of, and it is one of the last areas in San Francisco called the Shipyard. One of the last areas in San Francisco that has a waterfront view, and that they had been looking at for a while in order to change with the soil, kind of like the tip of Hunter's Point, but to change the soil. There was soil issues that had happened before. It took years to clean up the soil in that area. And so when you guys came to me with this particular property, this new construction, okay, we went and it felt good. However, there were things surrounding even, you know, the home that you couldn't immediately move on. Right. And so what made you kind of bring up the Shipyard area with your home?
That was also an accident.
Stumbled upon.
I was like, well, we have to find somewhere to stay. And so I was just looking at places that were in our price range. And one day I was like, hey, babe, do you want to go look at a house? And we did. And we came over here to the Shipyard. And the first property we saw was like a corner unit further up into the neighborhood. And we're like, oh, this is okay, but it's not ours. And then she ended up showing us a couple of other units and we really liked them. And then I was like, okay, well, let's see if we can get, because we live in a condo. I was like, let's see if we can get a single family home in the same price range. And then we went and saw other properties because somebody was like, don't buy the first place you see. And so we went and looked at other places and none of them like struck a chord with us like the place we ended up buying did. And so once we realized that, we just kind of were like, all right, well, let's pull the trigger and see what happens. And then all of that other stuff started to snowball. And then all of the soil issues came up and we had concerns there. And then banks stopped lending in our area. And then there was a government shutdown. So now the banks are on hold and the EPA is on hold with the soil reports. And we've been kind of waiting for 2 months at this point and hadn't had any forward action after putting in an offer. And I was getting a little antsy and I was like, well, maybe it's not meant to be. Maybe this is in our house and maybe we should look somewhere else.
Well, you know what? But you bring up a good point. And so in our next segment, we're going to break that down. So people want to know, okay, well, where's the miracle in this? Like, where was the wait? Oh, believe me, there was a wait. And we're going to talk about that in the next episode. But we're going to get into the very thing that Teri had mentioned. You know, number one, okay, so we have the place, and actually the place that they wanted originally, it was actually sold off, but there was a better place that was actually waiting. And so good thing it was a better place that was waiting. And then two, there was a government shutdown at that time. There was soil issues. Lenders weren't lending. Believe me, we'll get to that in the next segment. Stand by.
All right, very good.
All right. So our next segment time will be, all right. So 9 minutes, 45 seconds. I don't know. How you guys feeling? Doing good?
Good.
Doing
All
well.
right. So now we're going to get into the meat of what we just spoke on and how you guys are feeling during the time, because I know that was stressful. It was a stressful time, especially not knowing. When you not knowing. Okay, is the government ever going to open? All right. So Marcos, we're going to start now. All right, guys, so we are back. This is Tamika Ellsworth, Faith in Home Buying, and we're talking with the Grahams today about their pretty much their miracle story on home ownership. I helped them through the process, saw them walk it out, and came out shinier and brighter than ever. But last segment, we talked about the new, not new, but like it was new construction. So you think that everything was just good, you know, go in, put your deposit down, be done with it, right? Had a great views. But when I went over there, it was good. It was great. The place that you had saw originally, that wasn't even on the market anymore. However, there was a place that was waiting because someone didn't come back. I believe someone didn't come back. And like that place was just kind of held for you guys. And so when we went there, luckily I actually ended up knowing the agent that was that was on the other side, the builder's lender. And I said, wait a minute, you look really familiar. Back in the day. So you never know who God's going to bring you back around to. But that being said, seeing the different units, we went to the one unit. It was good. But then she said, you know what? I have another one for you to see. That person has to come back to put their deposit and let's go see it. And upon seeing it, Teri, what did you feel?
I said, the first thing we saw when we walked kind of into the master bedroom was a corner full of floor to ceiling windows. And I was like, I have to live here. If you know me, you know that I'm a sucker for a view. And we've got ocean views from our bedroom. We've got a balcony with city views. And it's just like, I was just blown away that God would like position me in a place where I could wake up to the sunrise every morning and watch the sunset from inside my home. I still get excited thinking about it.
Even Rob shed a little tear.
Real time.
But it had everything and more that you were asking for, and plus it being brand new. So that being said, home, great. That was on point. Go in and you had some time to think about it, because there was an article that was out in San Francisco Chronicle about the soil. And so of course that was a concern. And they had, in their paperwork that, hey, look, we're in the process of getting another soil report just to let everyone know everything's copacetic, everything is good. But we haven't got it yet. Right. And so going back and forth, I was looking at some of our texts and going back and forth like, hey, what do you think? Let's talk to him about it. Hey, can we negotiate price because of this? Absolutely, we will.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so all in all, you know, we were able to negotiate a great price, great closing cost credit, and the fact that you didn't have to come out of pocket basically for anything except your down payment. And the fact that, now let's talk about the fact that all this time, okay, great, now we're waiting. You prayed and you decided and said, you know what, we're going to go forward, right? Then the time came, okay, they're supposed to have the report now. It's a government shutdown.
Yep.
Our report's going to be delayed. It was supposed to be coming out in fall of 2018, and 2019 was right around the corner. We signed those papers on the 31st of December. So you were in contract, end of the year, government shutdown, lenders closed, wouldn't lend on the property.
Crazy. Crazy.
Next year coming through, because then we had New Year's, right? And no one was working, right? And then you had still a deadline to move out of your place and move out of your home. During that time, what was the feeling that you guys were going through?
I mean, I feel like I'm the accountant in our family, so I manage all of our finances, and that was probably the biggest check we've ever written, you know, for that earnest deposit. And after I give you my money, like I'm automatically thinking and making plans of like, what we're gonna do here, what furniture we're gonna get, where we're gonna place it. And, you know, here we are, we're in a waiting season where it's like, you know, the offer was accepted, but we couldn't move on it because we had those contingencies on, we're waiting on the report from the government on the soil in the neighborhood. And, you know, we have no idea when it's coming out. And so, I mean, initially, I think, you know, we had the mindset of, okay, cool, we'll wait. We're not in a rush. Our landlord said, you know what, like, we'll let you go month to month. And so we had a little bit more time. And, you know, a month goes by and we're in February, and literally we get to the second week in February and Teri and I are like, you know what, like, let's just pull out. Like, this is way too much waiting. We're tired of waiting and nothing's going to happen. And, you know, maybe it was February 13th.
February 12th.
Yep, February 12th.
At like 7 p.m. that soil report finally comes through. We give it a read. Again, they report that the soil is safe, that it's safe to live over here. And February 14th, a notary came over. We signed everything. And then March of 2019, we moved in. Yeah.
So, but nice Valentine's Day gift.
It was.
But see, look at that. God is in the details. Go ahead, Pastor.
Come on.
That waiting though, from, you know, end of, you know, November, December to middle of February was kind of crazy. He kept calling the EPA saying, hey, what's the ETA? Can you tell me anything? Has there been any motion? Like every other day, this guy is calling. And I'm just like, I'm still on Zillow because I'm like, well, if we can't live there, we got to live somewhere because this man is going to sell this place. So it was just funny how everything just fell into place so perfectly.
Yeah.
And shortly after, our landlord was able to sell.
Right. I mean, let's not get it twisted. The close of escrow got pushed back like a whole month because the report wasn't out yet. And so it kept getting pushed back. It kept getting pushed back. And so that's one of the reasons why, too, just faith and hope was just kind of like, okay, is this thing ever going to happen? And then what if it comes back and it says, it's horrible. You can't do it. Yeah. What are we going to do? Yeah. You know, and I think, you know, even for instance, in a time like this, when someone is thinking about buying or, you know, selling in such of such uncertainty, like, you know what? No, there's people that have survived. They've gone through the process. It wasn't easy, but they did go through the process and they did actually end up getting the promises. And matter of fact, looking at the time frame, it was perfect timing because it was perfect timing with you guys and being able to move from the home that you were in to now. Also, it was perfect timing for the wonderful Valentine's Day gift that it was too. You know, not to say we had anything to do with that because you let her wait a little bit so we can give her a good Valentine's Day gift present. But it also just came. I mean, but isn't that like God, right? Yeah. Isn't it like God?
Timing is perfect.
The time that the very moment that we're thinking about giving up, what ends up happening?
It comes through.
Yeah.
You know, I think in that season we learned, or you know, or really we're encouraged to know that, like, you know, the Bible says, you know, God's promises always prove true. They never return void. Like, it will always accomplish everything that it sets out to accomplish.
Right.
Like, that's real. So it's like the promise is there, never went away. But man, we can just continue to hold on to that promise, knowing that God's going to come through with it. It's just not going to look the way we expect it to look like, and it's not going to come at the time that we expect it to come, but it's going to come.
Right. Exactly. And I think that's the important part, in understanding that, you know, just even navigating, whether it be this time or any time, because there's going to be some delays this year. But the delayed is not necessarily denial. We've heard that before, right? It doesn't necessarily mean a no. A lot of times it's right now, but it's understanding what season that you're in to understand that, hey, it's not never going to happen. It's just not right now. And as a matter of fact, it's going to be better when it gets brought back. And, you know, because if you would have made the first decision on the first place that you had, it would have been okay. But it just wasn't, it wouldn't have been as good as it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, had you have, you know, waited, it wouldn't have been better than that. And I don't think that other unit, it wasn't better. I know
it had a skylight, but it wasn't better. It wasn't better.
Nothing
it wasn't better. But again, that's just the important part, that to know that, hey, just because you're getting obstacles coming in the way and it's not working, don't give up. Don't give up. If you have a promise and you have an unction to say, you know what, God, no, I know that you're in this. This is a little opposition, but I know in the end, you're probably not causing this, but you're probably causing a pause for a second, you know, and let's not rush into this. God, I know that you're still in it, but you'll know when to put on the pedal. There's certain times to put on the pedal, and there's certain times to just kind of just stop and just breathe and kind of just take an assessment of what's going on. Right. And so when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about what you can, let people know that might be in this situation, or maybe in the middle of the situation, and let them know these are some of the things that you can do, or what helped us get through this process, and some things that they can lean on and glean from the process and what you guys learned. Yeah. All right, stay tuned. Yay, see, that's fun. All right. Excellent. So ended on time there, and I think it's 2 more segments. And all right, how you guys feeling? You got some people joining in. I mean, there's some people that were kind of up there and joining in. All right, so the next talk time, and again, I want this one to be pretty much the pastor hat on, just talking about giving people hope during this time. And just giving them hope. Just do your whole journey, everything that you've gone through, even where you see yourself now, even as campus pastors, and in San Francisco, and what you're seeing with regards to people. This would be a great time to impart some hope in their lives, and give something a little inspirational. All right. So we are going to start this particular segment now. All right, so we're back, and I have the distinct privilege of interviewing not only my clients, but my friends and pastors of San Francisco campus, Pastor Rob and Pastor Teri Graham, and beautiful people, beautiful story. If you ever get an opportunity, we only have so much inside of a show, but if you ever get the opportunity to want to know who they are, I would encourage you to visit the campus in San Francisco from Vive Church campus in San Francisco, and they'll give the address in a little bit, but just to talk to them about faith. Their whole church, and I'm also attending a Vive church, but our whole church was founded on faith. Oh, yeah. Just Vive itself is just faith. And we have such great faith stories, not just in the spiritual kind of church setting, but even outside of that. God still does miracles, creates miracles, is a miracle worker, way maker, and their story does it does no justice in our 45 minutes, but to get down to the heart of really what they were going and thinking and what they can impart to other people. We're going to get into that now. So Pastor Rob, Pastor Teri, tell us a little bit about, or not even a little bit, but Tell us about how someone going through this process can navigate it with clear eyes, can navigate it with strength, and can navigate it and knowing that, you know, what God said he's going to do, he's going to do.
Yeah.
I think first it kind of falls on being obedient. If you are obedient to what God speaks to you, then there's a level of trust, a level of confidence you can carry into the situation. And we were confident because we knew that we were walking in alignment with God. We knew that we were where we were supposed to be at the right time. And we knew that we were meant to put roots down. And so there's a level of confidence that we can carry because I know that this is a promise from God. This wasn't a guess. This isn't me trying to force a round peg into a square hole. This is a God promise, and God's promises don't come back to him void. I know that, and I know that God speaks the end of a thing from the beginning. So before I even took the first step, God was already in it, and he's already seen it through to completion. So at the first step, it's like, okay, well, I have to be obedient. God says we're meant to put roots down in California, even though we don't know where yet. I do know that he's calling us to put roots down. And so that means that there are some things that we need to get in order. And so had we not been obedient 3 years ago, there's no way that we could have been obedient and had the follow through necessary to actually step into home ownership. So I think that's where it starts, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think knowledge is power. You said that to Tamika once before. And, we went to your Faith and Home Buying course because, I was like, I don't really know much about home buying, like what goes into it. I want to know the fine details, like what's an earnest deposit, where do we go get a loan? I need some more knowledge. And so I think knowledge is power. And so figuring out, okay, where can I go get that knowledge? Whether it's the internet or some realtors that you might know, but also, how do I also get prepared and get my finances in order so that I can start to make some physical moves? Because you can pray about something all day, but if you're not actually putting in the work to start to see it happen in your life, then, it's just, fake faith, and I think, God's empowered us to get the knowledge that we need to do things so that we can do it with him instead of us saying, okay, God's going to do it at some point in time, but no, God's going to do it with me. And so I think, knowledge is power with that, and, equipping yourself with more knowledge is going to get you ready. And then I think, if I had to put a third thing on it, patience. Home buying process is long and hard. Some people find their houses quick. Some people, it takes a long time. And the first house you might see and you love and you put your heart into it might get snatched away because somebody came with a better offer. And, I think, fortunately for us, we didn't have to go through a long process, or at least a process of looking for different houses.
Yeah, right, exactly.
We chose not to. But I think, even in that same process, whether you get the first home you were trying to get or you have to go through 10 houses, I think, patience is everything. And realizing that what you want and what you need, God's going to produce in some way, form, or fashion. And being able to pray over it. One of the practical things you have a lot of people do is actually write it down. Like, what are you envisioning? What kind of home are you envisioning?
I remember that you told us to be specific.
Like, be very specific.
And I was very specific.
I know you were.
And then, we walk the neighborhood. Walk some of the neighborhoods of houses that you might, want to live in. Can we actually live here? Do we see ourselves here? Fortunately for us at this neighborhood, there was a balcony, as Teri mentioned earlier, where you see the whole city. It was like, all right, well, God, you have called us to this city to lead our church here. But now we actually get to look at the whole city and we can pray over it and say, God, is this where you want us to actually be rooted in? Like, we're here. Do you want to actually get us rooted here? And fortunately for us, it got us rooted. And so, I think we are in crazy times. It's very uncertain. We have no idea, how long we're going to be sheltered at home. Just got extended. And we're like, you know what? Like, I'm dreaming for a home, and maybe you put an offer in, and now it's, everything's kind of just sitting and waiting. And you're like, what is going to be produced in this season? And, in James, he says, count it all joy when you face trials, because in that situation, patience will be produced. And, it sounds good, but in practice, it's hard. But, on the other side of going through a waiting season or a trial or a season of uncertainty, like you would always look back and be like, thank you, Jesus, for that season. It produced this inside of me. And, if anything I could encourage people with is have a strong core team around you. I'm so glad that we found a realtor who has faith. Because even when we were losing our faith, it was like, no. God's in the story. Trust me, there's a story being written. And so you got the right team on with you. Man, you can power through any season.
I would totally agree with that. It's so important to protect the space of your dreams. And not to let anybody speak into that. Like, I'm only going to invite faith-filled people and people of wisdom and people who care about me and love me and can see the God call, God purpose on my life to speak into the things in the dream realm for me. And I think so many of us, search out opinions of everybody. And not everybody can speak into you what should be spoken in that season. And so I'm so, like you said, I'm so grateful that we had Pastors Adam and Kira believing for us for this home, and you and our friends who are all faith-filled, all praying for us, and who are still really confident when we're like, I don't know if this is going to work out. And then celebrated as hard as we did, and we're excited for us as we were when we finally got those keys. I just remember when we told Pastor Adam and Kira that we finally bought it and that it was finally ours. They were in Hawaii at the time, and they paused on their vacation and sent us a video, and that just meant so much. Being, from beginning to end, they're in it. And I just feel like everybody needs those kinds of people in your life, especially when you're stepping into a season that's riddled with uncertainty.
Oh no, that's so good. And that even that last part is so good. Like, who you surround yourself, because you could very easily told the wrong people the wrong thing, and they would have thought, well, why that area, or it's just taking too long. I mean, you could have probably found something else, on this time. Why don't you go for this one? Or why don't you go for this? Or, it could have very easily derailed. So that's so true. We're talking about home buying, but we're actually talking about dreams and aspirations, things that God has secretly even told you, right? Be careful on those very things and who you speak to and who you talk to about, because I've seen it happen too. People are just like, well, don't do it with a VA loan. Oh no, you'll never be able to purchase then. And then they come to me and I'm like, let's go, VA loan, let's do it. Got the home, So that's important. Protect your dreams. And I think that's great, Pastor Teri. And whoever's listening to this, hear that, if it's something that you believe, hey, it may take you a year. It may take you 2 years. It may take you five months. It may not, but you know what? Protect the thing that you have in your heart, because I honestly believe that those desires and those things in our heart, especially if our mind has been renewed, we're saved, sanctified, new in Christ, right? We're a new creation. So therefore, old things have passed away. Behold, there's new things. So therefore, the desires of my heart, I honestly believe they're coming from God, and it's coming to fulfill a purpose. It's coming for some kingdom stuff. So I have it here for a reason. And so because I have that, God, you're going to see it through, because there's a high purpose and a higher calling for me. And hence, even with yourself, because you're right. That view on your rooftop in that place is just to die for. Like, you guys just don't even know. Like, even from their bedroom, from all the rooms, and being able to see and pray, just pray over the city of San Francisco. It's a perfect spot to see everything from not really an eagle point of view, but from a point of view that's very, very almost 360. You can see it all around. We come back, we're going to wrap everything up and talk a little about where people can actually go in order to experience some of this faith-filled preaching / pastoralship in San Francisco. Stay tuned. All right. And so that was harmless. That was great. So the last segment is going to be probably a short one. I think it's around a 5-minute segment. And I'm going to just kind of wrap everything up. And I do want you guys to talk a little bit about how to get to you over in San Francisco. Even though we're online, still give a little shout out and give the physical, because once everything's done, it's done. However, we're going to go back. We go back. All right. So we're going to start this segment right now. All right, so Tamika Ellsworth with Faith in Home Buying. I'm here with the Grahams, and just had a great story. If you missed it, you so got to catch the podcast. But just to wrap up one of the last segments that we talked about with going through this process, having obedience, which is true. And this is why I tell people, hey, look, first and foremost, pray where you need to be. Mm-hmm. Like if God's saying you need to go to, the East Bay, well, then you know what, we're going to focus in the East Bay. If that's where you're planted, that's where he's sending you. That's where the provision is going to be, and that's where the blessing is. Going outside of that into an area where you think that you want to be, it wastes a little bit of time sometimes, right? So being obedient, and then also being confident about the fact that God has given me a promise and said, yes, home ownership is yours. Then we're going to go through with it, and God, you will complete your word that you've set forth, right? Also knowing that you're going in God's purpose, because there is a purpose and a destiny attached to, our lives. God, okay, so you have so much more to me. So I'm going to keep walking this thing out because you know what's best, and you know where I need to be planted to be a light, be that diamond shine. Yeah. And then lastly, just protecting your dreams. And Pastor Teri, you talked about that, and, just protecting your dreams and protecting the things that, God has said. And so being careful and speaking those things out, because not only people, but the devil can hear it too. He can't hear what you're thinking, but if you speaking those things out, then he knows. Other than that, he'll go by your patterns. Did they give up before? They'll probably give up again. Let's see if they'll give up. If the pressure's too hard, will they fight and argue and all the stress come through it so they won't carry through? I've seen it happen, but God. But so lastly, Pastor Rob, Pastor Teri, tell us about the San Francisco campus and those that want to be able to worship with you. How can they get a hold of you?
Ooh, well, we have an amazing church here in the Bay Area, Vive Church. With locations all around the Bay Area and the world, in Rome and Italy as well. But here in San Francisco, every single Sunday we meet at the Grand Theater in the Mission District. But as you know, we are in shelter in place around the world. But that doesn't mean that church hasn't stopped.
That's right. No, it doesn't. You can catch us online at youtube.vivechurch.org. But when all of this is over, and it will be over, when it's over, we'd love to meet you in person. If you live in San Francisco, you can meet us at the Grand Theater, which is 2665 Mission Street. You can follow 2665 Mission Street. You can follow us at vive.sf on Instagram. I don't know your Instagram handle.
Oh, wow. Rob G 1906.
And I'm Teri B06 at G. Yeah. Yes.
So you can find us on social media with the general church, vive.church. But even right now in the season, we still are meeting as a community. So you can still gather. We still gather together every Wednesday for our digital online groups. So if you're interested in learning more about the church, literally just head to the website, vivechurch.org, and you can have all the information that you need wherever you are, especially if you're here in the Bay Area. Yep. Come check us out. Love to have you.
And that's yes. And, also, let's talk about, your coffee and chai. So, I love that. We have about like a minute left. Talk to me a little bit about that. How can people tune in and tap into that?
Yes. Coffee and Chai is my podcast that actually new episodes come out every other Thursday. So one dropped today with Tamika. So
oh my goodness.
Episode out. But you can follow us on Instagram at coffeeandchai.podcast. It's really literally just a podcast on faith and creativity. So if you are creative and you have faith, check it out.
Excellent. Well, thank you again. I so appreciate your story, and I think it's going to shed a lot of light on people and it's going to encourage someone. But other than that, this is Tamika Ellsworth with Faith in Home Buying, and I'm equipping people of faith for the home buying process. But not only that, just hopefully in sparking some type of hope, and knowing that even though we're going through an interesting time, we've had interesting times before, and people still have gotten through it, and people still are get put in situations that they sometimes don't think that they can prevail in. But just know, I'm hoping to bring more people on that have prevailed during interesting times, and they never gave up, because God has given them a promise, and if he's promised you it, I'm going to believe with you that he's going to fulfill it. Thank you, everyone. Faith and Home Buying, Tamika Ellsworth.